going down. H-Town, Hiram Clark, B.Scott.
B.Scott from Hiram Clark, 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 B.Scott from Hiram Clark. Do the Hiram Clark, do the Hiram Clark, do it. Do the Hiram Clark, do the Hiram Clark, do it. Do the Hiram Clark, do the Hiram Clark, do it. Do the Hiram Clark, do the Hiram Clark, do it. B.Scott from Hiram Clark, coming down looking smart. Candy paint on the car, push the button just to start. Riding clean, looking fly. H-Town till he die. Swinging down West Time and throw the deuces in the sky. Sam Houston represent, you other cats irrelevant. He be at the press conference, getting all the questions in. 6'10 represent, you know how he do it. B.Scott from Hiram Clark, do it. B.Scott from Hiram Clark, 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 B.Scott from Hiram Clark.
All right, y'all. It's the B Block Podcast. Appreciate y'all for joining me. We're here to talk about the Rockets, man. They just picked up let's call it a rare win in Indianapolis. I didn't realize that the Rockets had not won on the road against the Pacers since something like 2018. So we didn't pass 7 years. I know they only go there once a year, I understand. And the Pacers have been and remain scrappy. But I didn't realize that it had been that long since they had won out in Indianapolis. So this was a pretty big win from that standpoint. But even more so, the fact that they are able to win the first game without Kevin Durant due to this ankle injury that he's got, this sprained ankle. Now, they played without KD earlier in the season. He missed a couple of games for personal reasons. This is the first game, and I think this is important. This is the first game that KD misses due to injury. All-star season for KD. Just named that over the weekend. I think it's his 16th. He's like only behind like Kareem and LeBron. Like what an incredible season for Kevin Durant just to be, playing at the level that he's playing for the Rockets right now. But all the more reason why it was going to be imperative on somebody, and I mean anybody, to step up in a very critical way in Kevin Durant's absence. And look, I was thinking that could be Reed Shepard. I thought it could be Amin Thompson. I thought it could even be Jabari Smith Jr. to some degree. But it turned out to just straight up be Alperen Sengun, the one dude who probably should have been an all-star. Now, I didn't get too caught up into the all-star snubs and all of that, like saying that Sengun was snubbed. I think he was, because I would have had him as the all-star over Chet. But I think Chet is deserving as well, just not more deserving than Alperen Sengun. I could imagine, though, that Alperen Sengun, and especially, Rockets fans, anybody watching this, probably feels like Sengun was slighted. And it seemed like he approached the game that way. And I was trying to decide, like, are we seeing a more aggressive Sengun because of the all-star snub, or just the simple fact that Kevin Durant's not out there and they absolutely need him to ball out? But whatever the reason was, Alperen Sengun was sensational in this game. I mean, I would say sensational until the very end there. And he even admitted, to his credit, he said that they got lucky at the end with how the ball bounced when they were missing free throws and like struggling to close out the game. This is something to kind of monitor, or not even monitor, just to point out about Sengun, as incredible as he was tonight. And I should point out before I even go to the negative, 39 points, 16 rebounds, 18 free throws in this game, 18 free throws. And I believe 12 of those were taken in the fourth quarter. Now, we can talk in a moment about how that game ended. Actually, let's talk about it now, because I'm giving him credit for this. Dude says, we got lucky at the end. Yeah, bruh, you missed 2 free throws to ice the game. Now, they get the offensive rebound. They end up scoring. They end up making it happen. But this is something to monitor, as I was saying, or to think about with Sengun, of him just not being able to knock down these free throws in the clutch. It is maddening to a degree. And it feels like it's something that could cost them in the long run or could have cost them in this game tonight. Unfortunately, it did not. And so the story gets to be that Alperen Sengun was incredible. And honestly, he was incredible from start to finish. I mean, we're looking at 11 points in the first quarter on 5 of 9 shooting. It didn't matter who was guarding him. Like, nobody, it didn't matter if it was Jay Huff. It didn't matter if it was Micah Potter. It didn't matter who they put on Alperen Sengun in this particular game, man. He was just going to be out there cooking. And so he's got 11 in the first quarter on 5 of 9 shooting, and the 9 shots right there. I mean, it's almost double it what anybody else took, any amount of field goals that anybody else took in that quarter. Just showed you the aggression, the urgency that Sengun was playing with, given the stakes, and I think also given the fact that he was, I would imagine, in his mind, snubbed, and I think you can make a legitimate case that he was snubbed in the All-Star selection. So you get a really good Alperen Sengun game, and I thought it was important to get that as well because Sengun's been a little bit up and down. We've talked about this. Like, ever since he came back from his own injury, it's been a little bit hit or miss with Alperen Sengun, and this was definitely more hit. You know, I loved how you saw just a lot of his repertoire, both in the post and getting downhill. Like, it was a classic quintessential Alperen Sengun game. What you would like to see from him, aside from the free throws at the end, the type of game that you'd like to see from Alperen Sengun night in and night out. And honestly, I thought the type of performance that you were seeing from him early on in the season when he looked like an all NBA, not just an all-star, okay? Not just an all-star, but an all NBA guy. And so this has got to be, one of the more motivating things for somebody who, again, was playing, I thought, at an all NBA level to start the season. And then you look up and he's not even an all-star. And it has a lot to do with how his last several games have gone. And True Blue Right on Time says that he was snubbed because he's so inconsistent. In the next game, he's going to have 8 points. Hey, look, I think that's a fair critique. I don't really have much. I don't really have much to go back at you. Like, I can't defend that, right? So he had 33 against Memphis and I've talked about this on other podcasts and I think on the radio, but he had 33 against Memphis, okay, several games ago. And it wasn't just 33, it was on the most efficient, high volume game that we've seen from a Rocket since Hakeem Olajuwon before he was an NBA champion. Okay, so that's what we're talking about a few games ago. Alperen Sengun with the highest efficiency on the highest volume for a Rocket since Hakeem Olajuwon in that first season that they won the championship. And do you want to know what Alperen Sengun, or have you noticed what Alperen Sengun has done ever since then? Since that game a few games ago against the Memphis Grizzlies, where he goes 15 of 17 from the field, okay, and scores 33 points on that. He's gone 7 of 20 for 18 points. He's gone 3 of 14 for 9 points. And that Atlanta game, look, they blew him out. They didn't really need him, but the numbers are still what they are in that. And then against Dallas, he goes 6 for 20 for 14 points. And was a -3 from in the plus minus section. -14 in that San Antonio game, which they lost. So I thought it was important for the point that I'm making there is I thought it was important for Alperen Sengun following the Memphis game, having 3 games, and this is also the True Blues point. He'll have 8 points the next game. The 3 games since the Memphis game have left a lot to be desired, have been objectively underwhelming for Alperen Sengun standards. And I think those games also speak to the logic and reasoning behind him not being an all-star, because you have a handful of these since he came back from the injury. Now you got some really good games in there as well. I mentioned the 33-point, but you've got him against Minnesota on the 16th, 25 points, 14 rebounds. Now he's a -7 on the plus minus side. So maybe that's not the best example, but the point being that it's fluctuated. It's been up and down. It's been, to True Blues point, inconsistent. And so it was really good to see Alperen Sengun come out there, be aggressive. For however long Kevin Durant is going to be out, they're going to need Alperen Sengun and others to step up in ways that they absolutely did in this game. So, like, I don't know if you can say enough about the game that Sengun had. Again, whether it was his post-ups, whether it was him getting downhill, whether it was some of these assists. He was, let's see, he only finished with 5 assists, but it felt like at least 2 or 3 of them were highlight reels, behind the back, quick bounce pass. I know y'all saw that one in the second quarter where it was almost like a touch bounce pass on the baseline to Amen Thompson for the dunk. And when we talk about the Sengun hub, that's the type of shit we're talking about right there. Alperen Sengun just making plays, not just being your primary scorer, but your primary sort of playmaker, which he wasn't necessarily that tonight, but obviously has that ability. So that was huge. The 39 and 16. So 16 rebounds, 7 offensive rebounds for Sengun. And this is a big thing for the Rockets as well, talking about them being without Steven Adams for the rest of the year and how much his ability to crash the boards, being one of the better offensive rebounders in NBA history, how that really changes and adds a whole new dimension to their offense. Because even when they're not knocking down shots, they've got, when Steven Adams is healthy, they got one of the best offensive rebounders in league history. And in Amen Thompson, they've got the best offensive rebounding non-center in the league. And so these guys create shots for them. Even Clint Capella, I think, is worth noting, is pretty decent on the offensive glass, even though he's not in the stratosphere, as I say, as Steven Adams. But they got guys that crash the glass. They crash the offensive glass as a strategy, as a unit. And it was real cool to see that you had at least 3 guys with 4 offensive rebounds or more. And it's the 3 guys that I mentioned. Alperen Sengun with the 7 of his 16 boards were on the offensive variety. You also had Clint Capella and Amen Thompson with 4 offensive rebounds apiece. Thought that was excellent. You obviously want to see that. So shout out to them. Now, and so I probably should just get all of the positive out before I go to the negative or some of the things that disappointed me in this game. But Sengun is the obvious story. We can't get too far in this without mentioning the Stay Ready crew. The Stay Ready crew as a whole, that goes for Clint Capella, Dorian Finney-Smith, but even more so than that, Jae'Sean Tate. Jae'Sean Tate, they don't win this game without him. They don't win this game without his physicality, without his rebounding, without his defense, without his energy. And look, Jae'Sean Tate is not like he's at the end of the bench. He's part of the Stay Ready crew. He normally only plays when someone's either injured or on these back-to-backs when they're trying to rest people. So he's not a bona fide part of their rotation. He's kind of just, there as both insurance and I think as, for his veteran presence. Everybody in that locker room respects him, and rightfully so. Everybody in that building respects Jae'Sean Tate to a large degree. But this goes beyond some of the sentimental, intangible stuff. Man, he came out there just defending. Like when he first came out there, I think it was either Mathurin or Neesmith, which one of those guys, Mathurin or Neesmith, goes at him and gets an and one on him. But Jae'Sean Tate was just defending. I think that was one of the bad calls. There were several bad calls in this game. I thought it was a poorly officiated game, or certainly not a well officiated game. But really from that moment on, you're getting the minutes that you got from Jae'Sean Tate. How many minutes did he have? Jae'Sean Tate played 14 minutes in this game. And was a plus 17. How about that? Jayshawn Tate had the highest, the greatest plus minus of anybody in this game. Jayshawn Tate. And he played the third fewest minutes of anybody for the Rockets, but had the highest plus minus because of his 8 points, because of his rebounding, because of his defense. Okay. And look, Stay Ready crew was just that. So you had Tate. You had Dorian Finney-Smith, who caught a lob from Capella, which was really wild. Like, that is something that I don't feel like they should try to replicate too often. And Dorian Finney-Smith, I think, certainly scared the broadcast and probably had others in the organization a little nervous, given how long it took him to really get going and that he's still getting ramped up. But Dorian Finney-Smith gave you, I thought, even though he was a -8, I thought he gave you decent minutes. His 16 and a half or 16, almost 17 minutes that he played. And then Clint Capella. I mentioned this earlier, but the 7 rebounds, 4 offensive rebounds, he was also a minus. So the Stay Ready crew, only Jayshawn Tate was on the positive side of the plus minus, but I thought they gave you key minutes, a lot of really good energy from all of those guys. And so that's who I really, really want to acknowledge in this game. I also think it's worth noting that Jabari Smith Jr., okay, somebody that's been struggling up and down this season, has had now back-to-back games where he's played really, really well. He had 19 in this game. Looks like, what is this, 19 and 4, but 50% from the field overall, 6 of 12 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3. Had the 3 going, had a little bit of the mid-range going. Thought Jabari played his role perfectly, and this was a good Jabari Smith game. I think it's important now that we have done so much piling on Jabari, and I say piling on, for me it's just accountability, because I actually believe in him as a player and have always found myself wanting more. Even when he plays well, I always find myself wanting more out of Jabari Smith Jr. But he struggled, okay? He's been up and down. His shot has been here and there. And so since we have fixated so much on this Jabari thing and these Jabari struggles, I do think that it's important for us to acknowledge whenever he does. And look, we ain't got to, we ain't got to pander or patronize, my man, is the word I was looking for. We don't have to patronize Jabari Smith Jr., a professional basketball player and a well-paid one now at that. But I do think it's just for clarity and for the record and in the interest of fairness, we should point out when my man does his job, and he absolutely did his job in this game. So want to acknowledge Jabari Smith Jr. as well. All right, so Amen Thompson did not shoot the ball particularly well, and that free throw at the end was a little frustrating. But especially because, did anybody else, y'all tell me, did anybody else watch him shoot that first free throw at the end of the game and feel like he was almost trying to miss it on purpose? It was so poorly, the release was so poor. Like, it looked like it was a push shot. Normally, despite the fact that Amen Thompson doesn't shoot it well, he's been a lot better from the free throw line, and his form looks just fine, which is one of the confounding parts about him not being a shooter worth a damn. Like, form looks good, have no idea, don't understand why my man can't get a decent jump shot off. But in this example, I'm like, what's going on? Is he nervous? Is he tired? I couldn't really understand that. But aside from that, my man's got 16 and 11 and 7, 3 assists away from a triple-double, plus 13 on the plus-minus side. Okay, so again, didn't shoot the ball particularly well, 6 of 15 from the field, but got to the line, 4 or 5 from the free throw line, and the offensive rebounds that I mentioned earlier. 4 offensive rebounds, and it turned out offensive rebounding was paramount in this game. Really needed it. So want to acknowledge those three in particular: Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith Jr., Amin Thompson from the starters, and then the stay ready crew of Jayshawn Tate, Clint Capella, and Dorian Finney-Smith, I think are all worth acknowledging. Now, Tari Eason had a relatively quiet game, but he rebounded well, and he did come up with a pretty big bucket toward the end of the game in the fourth quarter, I think it was, despite having a real quiet night. Only had 9 points, but 10 rebounds on the game. Negative on the negative on the plus minus side, right? So he's -2, but and that's probably because he's 3 of 7 from the field and just didn't do a whole lot outside of the rebounding. But the rebounding was important. The rebounding was important on a quiet night from Tari Eason. Only 1 or 2 from 3. The Rockets themselves, shot the 3 pretty poorly in this game. 7 of 22 from 3. Turned out to not matter because they shot 16 more free throws. They shot 16 more free throws than the Pacers. Alperen Sengun himself shot only 3 fewer free throws than the Pacers as a team. So that's what you want to see, especially on a team that struggles in the half-court setting offensively. That's what you want to see. Now, there were times in this game, I thought especially early on, where the defense was a little bit lacking. Now, the Pacers did a good job of just knocking down threes. Both teams do a really good job of defending the 3, and the Pacers, you couldn't tell that from the Rocket side based off how the Pacers were shooting the 3 early on in this game. But I feel like they buckled down eventually. What was in the first quarter, the Pacers are 4-7 from 3. 3 of 6 from 3 in the second quarter, right? So that first half, 7 of 13 from 3. And then I just thought there were a lot of buckets that were a little bit too easy for my taste. Rockets were dominating the paint, but the Pacers still got, 20 points in the paint and were 7 of 13 from 3. I just thought their shots were way too easy. There wasn't enough resistance in the first half. And I thought it got a little bit better in the second half, even though that third quarter, they ended up actually getting outplayed. So the third quarter was interesting, though, because it was like the tale of 2 games just within the third quarter. The tale of 2 quarters within a quarter, right? The first half of the third, they seemed to be really good and really on top of it. And then I think the Pacers finished the third quarter on something like a 24-12 run. So that wasn't great. That wasn't great at all. But by the time you get to the fourth quarter, though, it's a tie. It's a tie game going into the fourth quarter. So by the time you get to the fourth quarter, what really happens is Alperen Sengun goes back to work, and he's got 12 fourth quarter free throws. 12 fourth quarter free throws. And I feel like that was really the difference in the game. I know that crowd in Indianapolis had to be just antsy about the whole thing, right? Yeah, there was one foul, I forget who was on, where it was really like a tic-tac touch foul, and they gave it to him anyway. And by that point, he had already shot a handful of free throws in the fourth quarter already. So if I was on the other side, I probably would have been pretty damn frustrated with watching Sengun shoot all of those free throws, but it is what it is. I digress. 12 free throws, though. All right. And misses 4 in the fourth quarter, but again, those last 2 were the ones that, you look at it and Sengun, this is the one thing that's a real problem with Buddy, is that when it gets late in the game for whatever reason, my man struggles from the free throw line. I'm not really entirely sure what that's about. So, yeah. True Blue mentions that Smith has been shooting it well as of late. I'm just looking at the last couple of games that he's played. It was a podium game for him in the last game because we brought him to the podium and talked to him. And then this one wasn't necessarily a podium game for him, but it was another really good one. Yeah, Dallas. Yeah, 19 against Dallas in the most recent game on what was that, Saturday or Sunday? Sunday. Had 19 and 8, 7 to 13 from the field. So that game, this game, Jabari Smith looked like he's on the right track or trending in the right direction. Now, his issue to a much larger degree than Alperen Sengun has been the consistency. So you just like to see him carry this on. And I know we got to talk to him after that game on Sunday. And his mindset is really just on winning and impacting the game in a variety of ways, however many ways, even when his shot isn't falling. And this is something I thought is like really important with Jabari is that like there's no excuse for him to shoot poorly, especially given his role on this team. A lot of his shots are open, and that's just supposed to be a part of his game. A part of the plus side of having him be a part of the team is that you got this really tall guy who can shoot, but he's also a fairly, or at least supposed to be a fairly versatile player outside of just the shooting. Supposed to provide you the rebounding, supposed to provide you defense. Like it is, and not just like he's supposed to provide you defense. Defensive versatility is what I'm looking for. Okay, so the key with him is even when that shot is not falling, that he's still finding ways to impact the game. And just because the shot's not falling, we don't like forget that he's out there. And I thought that he's done or think that he's done a really good job these last couple of games of first and foremost shooting the ball. I don't want to downplay the importance of that. First and foremost shooting the ball, but also doing other things that impact winning. So definitely with you on that. True Blue also mentions that no one can guard Sengun when he's being aggressive. Certainly not none of these dudes for the Pacers couldn't. They ain't had nothing for him. They ain't had nothing for him in the post. They ain't have nothing for him when he was trying to get downhill. He was shaking guys. Like he had those dope passes that I mentioned earlier. Like it was really just a great game, a full display of Sengun, the should be all-star. Sengun, the looked like he was going to be an all NBA guy early on in the season. So, yeah. Now, I did think it was funny when him and Mathurin got into it a little bit. Like Sengun is like reminding folks like I ain't here to take no shit. But then at the same time, I saw some people kind of criticizing like, bro, you out here foul baiting anyway. Somebody gave you can't take a tough foul. You got to get upset about it. I didn't think that little shove from Mathurin was like dirty or egregious. Sengun is allowed to take exception to it and not appreciate it if he likes. But for me, I just like his and this team overall. One of the characteristics that you want to continue to see out of them is the lack of back down, that edge to them. It don't feel like this Rockets team, this Sengun Mathurin episode notwithstanding, it don't feel like they got enough edge to them. When people talk about them missing Dylan Brooks, it's not just his defensive prowess, but it's just that edginess, that no back down. There's just a certain level of toughness that came with him being on the team that I'm not gonna say they don't have at all or is completely lacking. It just doesn't really show up a lot. It's not as clear and as obvious as it was last year or the last couple of years when they had Dylan Brooks out there. So that was actually kind of good to see, show a little bit of, hey, look, man, I ain't like that push. Watch how you handle me, as we used to say. See what else we got here. Mo Hunnit. What we saying? Well, who's on the way? We on the way should be a good one. I'm not sure what you mean there, Mo Hunnit, but I appreciate you for watching and appreciate you for dropping in the chat as well. Now, here's the thing that I wanted to get to before I get out of here. The Hornets. Talk about the Hornets. Yeah, man. Hey, look, the Hornets are playing some of the best basketball in all of basketball right now. They are a league pass darling, and probably a little bit more than that. I'm very curious. And I haven't had as much time to sit with the Hornets as much time as I would like to really sit with the Hornets. But bruh, yeah, yeah, they are exciting. Obviously, they got Con Knipple, who is, I would say, the front runner for rookie of the year, despite what I saw from Cooper Flagg the other night. Cooper Flagg's the best rookie, all right? He hasn't had the best season, and I think he's probably been asked, I don't know if it's fair to say he's been asked to do more than Con, maybe a little bit, maybe it's comparable. Maybe it just took him a little bit longer to get going, but forget that. Con Knipple, that dude. And then also the fact that Brandon Miller has turned into something. Not turned into something. He's been a good player the whole time, but like it's coming together, right? It's coming together. Like he is a dependable 20 to 25 a night and is just really good. So, yeah, I'm very much excited to watch the Hornets any chance that I get. So, Mo Hunnit, who again is a Hornets fan, says it's going to be fun. They in Houston, win streak on the line. Says also that they're finally healthy. Yeah, that's the big thing with Brandon Miller, who I mentioned, like healthy, out there on the floor. The Hornets are a good watch. What else can I say? Hornets are a good watch. All right, so last thing on the Rockets before I get out of here. Reed Shepard, who I didn't think was bad tonight by any stretch. I actually thought he was pretty good. Or I thought he was. Let me change that. I thought Reed Shepard was fine. I thought he was just fine. However, something to be said for the fact that they did not trust him to close out this game. That he only comes in when at the end of the game when they got the ball and they're trying to seal it. And so they brought in him and Aaron Holiday, and then I feel like he ended up having a bad inbounds pass that got deflected and really could have gotten stolen. But I thought it was disappointing. Okay, this is just my take on it. It was disappointing to me to see in a game that was close at the end, where Reed Shepard got the starting nod, okay, 3.5 hours from his hometown in Kentucky, in Indianapolis, gets the starting nod on the road, no Kevin Durant. And in the fourth quarter, there wasn't the confidence to play Reed Shepard. That part was disappointing. And I'm not saying I'm disappointed in Ime Udoka for that. I'm disappointed because I don't know. I have to go back and look and really, but I thought Reed was fine, but there's got to be a reason why. And it could, it could just be the fact that Jayshawn Tate was giving him so much energy. But to me, Reed Shepard's got to have a greater impact on the game. Let me just make it plain. Reed Shepard's got to have a greater impact on the game when Kevin Durant is not out there. I'm not talking about just not out there on the floor, but not available to you at all. So it's not like he's resting for the fourth quarter or to come in there and close. Nah, man, I've been on this Reed Shepard train. I've been the president of the fan club and remain so. But just talking about tonight, it was disappointing for me to look out there and it's just a couple of minutes left in the game and Reed's nowhere to be found. Now, I gave Jayshawn Tate his flowers to start this thing or earlier in this thing. And I'm not going away from that. Jayshawn Tate helped him win this game. The decision Okay, let's give him a Udoka some credit. The decision to go with Jayshawn Tate and not necessarily Reed Shepard to end the game or in the final stretch helped them win this game. So I'm not mad at the decision. I'm mad at the facts. You ever have to accept facts but then just don't like them? I feel like that happens a lot, but in today's society, you just try to come up with your own alternative facts or try to dispute the facts when you don't like them. The fact of the matter is that the head coach did not have confidence enough in Reed Shepard, despite the fact that he started him, did not have confidence enough or enough confidence in him to play him in the fourth quarter. All the other starters played at least 5 minutes or more, around about half the fourth quarter or more. Tari Eason plays close to 10 minutes in the fourth quarter. Alperen Sengun played 10 minutes. Amen Thompson played the entire fourth quarter. Jabari Smith Jr. played right at about 6 minutes. Reed Shepard came in for those 8 seconds for that final possession or for one of those final possessions just because they were going offense, but otherwise was not involved in the fourth quarter. That is disappointing. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Aaron Holiday and Jayshawn Tate both played right around 10 minutes. So as a matter of fact, so they both outplayed. They played more than Jabari. I don't think I even realized this in real time, but they both played more than Jabari and Reed Shepard in the fourth quarter. Don't love that. Don't love that at all. So I am disappointed that you didn't get more out of Reed. Hoping that for however long this stretch is that Kevin Durant's going to be out, that Reed can give you more because they're going to need him. They're going to need him. And to be clear, I didn't criticize the decision not to play him in the fourth quarter, but I do want him playing in the fourth quarter. I do want the Rockets out there going sink or swim with Reed Shepard. I want that. I do. I'm very much invested in my man's development, just conceptually. Like, I'm not personally invested or anything like that. I think I'm fine, actually. But yeah, man, that's where we're at. Mo Hunnit says that those reps are needed, especially in close games long term. That's what I'm saying. Like, Reed Shepard is a long-term play. It's complicated a little bit by the fact that they are, they fancy themselves on being contenders now. The move to go get Kevin Durant pretty much confirms that. And Kevin Durant's play since then confirms that. This is a team that's ready-made to try to make a run, at least to the Western Conference Finals. You can't really just be messing around and trying to develop guys the way that they were doing, in the early parts, or I shouldn't say the early parts because the rebuild is over. During the rebuild, right, when Sengun and Jalen Green first get drafted and they got all of this runway, you can't really do that with Reed Shepard because the stakes are higher. But I'd be damned if I didn't want to, man, if I didn't want them to, because I feel like it's that important, that whatever the Rockets do at the trade deadline, whatever they do over the summer when it comes to the Giannis sweepstakes, which put a pin in that. We'll talk about that in the coming days. The trade deadline is this week. And I've had some borderline controversial opinions about whether the Rockets should be pursuing Giannis. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And y'all probably heard me on the radio or another podcast do this. But no matter what happens with that, Reed Shepard, I imagine, is going to be on this team. Reed Shepard is going to be on the team. And I just think it's important to mold the young man. True Blue, do you believe this, dog? Before we get out of here, man, we've been on here for 40 minutes. I appreciate everybody that's dropped through B Block Podcast. Subscribe on the YouTube if you haven't already. We also do audio-only versions as well. Usually not the lives, though. That's the cool part about the YouTube. So check us out wherever it is that you get your podcast, but certainly here on the YouTube. True Blue, talk to me, man. Championship or bust for the Rockets? You still think that on February 2nd, with all the information we got, you still think it's championship or bust? I would have been fine with that, like say around media day, training camp. Maybe even after like the first game of the year when they lose that thrilling overtime game to the Thunder. But now, on top of the Fred VanVleet injury, you got Steven Adams out for the rest of the year. I don't know. I see the LOL here, so I'm trying to figure out if you're serious. But I don't feel like it's championship or bust. That's a rough standard, considering that I don't think anybody thinks that they're better than the Thunder. I don't think anybody thinks that they're better than the Nuggets. Now, it's after that where it gets interesting because they are in that crowd of teams that make a case. But those two are clearly a cut above, it feels like to me, especially when they're right. When they're right and when they're healthy. But the Spurs have entered the chat in a major way. I know they've had some battles this year, but they've entered the chat, just beat the Rockets at Toyota Center. I don't know. The Minnesota Timberwolves have made a little bit of a comeback. I know they had an interesting game against Memphis. I didn't see how that ended, but Memphis was apparently handling up on them earlier. But they've entered the chat. I don't know. Championship or bust is tough for me now. True Blue says, yes, sir. Most definitely is championship or bust. I think they still have a chance. Hey, look, I like the energy. And I like the accountability too. You go out and you get Kevin Durant. You were the number 2 seed last year. I don't mind that energy from you, man. I don't know how realistic the championship. I don't even know if they're gonna get to the championship, much less championship or bust. It's gonna be real tough to do that. Mo Hunnit, and I appreciate you, Mo Hunnit, man. I don't know if I've had you in the chat before, but man, come back and rock with us again, man. You got some pretty good energy in here contributing to the conversation. Says, I think, this is from Mo Hunnit, I think second round is doable, but can't see y'all running with the Nugs or OKC as is. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair take. Now, I've said this. I actually like their matchup against those teams, especially OKC, because I've seen them play well against OKC in the past. Last year, this year, I've seen it happen. So I like how they match up against OKC. The whole 7-game series thing. It's probably a better team over the course of 7 games. The Nuggets too. So there is that. Mohana mentions how tough the West is. This is the thing, man. And True Blues mentioned it. West is tough, but anytime you have KD, you got to go for it. I think they're going for it. For sure, man. I think they're going for it. And KD, this is the thing. This is my thing, too, about your whole championship or bust mentality, where I am with you. This is where we're going to see eye to eye before I get out of here. I don't think you can waste a KD all-star year at age 37. Like, we're living in it in real time, and I think we're properly appreciating it. But this is some don't try this shit at home type of stuff, man. Like 37-year-olds with very few exceptions. And honestly, the greatest exceptions are in the league now. But guys this age don't play this way. I think KD is a special case. I expect him to be good, when he comes back for the remainder of this year and good again next year. But, man, when you bring in KD, and then KD reaffirms your logic for bringing him in and maybe even exceed some expectations, man, championship or bust is tough given how stacked the top or how good the top of the West is. The defending championship is coming out, or the defending champion is coming out of there. A former champion is coming out of there. Tough, but man, for the way that he's playing, for the way that KD is playing, True Blue mentions, like it would be a shame to. I'm kind of more conference finals or bust, and I hate to be like that. It feels like that's a loser's mentality. So I don't want to sound like no, I ain't, because I ain't no damn loser. All right. I'm not no lame, but I'm also trying to be realistic. More than anything, I'm a realist. I'm a pragmatist. I'm practical. And so when I'm just being real with it, got a tough time seeing them like saying championship or bust. Now, if they shock the world, beat OKC or beat Denver on the way to the finals, I mean, look, that East, they got the Pistons, they got the Knicks. The Celtics have been surprisingly good, but without Jason Tatum. But it's the West. That's the tough part to really see how that whole thing shakes out, or how the Rockets fall in that pecking order. Do they have the half court off? Think about this for Mo 100 and True Blue and everybody else in the chat before I leave. Do you have enough faith in their half court offense aside from Kevin Durant that can get it done in a 7-game series against the Thunder or the Nuggets? And I know Sengun just had an incredible game. He's a big part of their half court offense. It's just too KD and or Sengun reliant. And not enough relying on a 2-man game between them. It's either one or the other. KD go be KD, Sengun go be Sengun. But not a whole lot more than that. So we'll see. I appreciate everybody for stopping by, doing the damn thing. Make sure y'all subscribe to the B-Block Podcast, like I mentioned earlier. Do that wherever it is that you get your podcast. Do that right here on YouTube. You should also tell your people about the podcast. If they don't know. We ain't been very long in doing this thing consistently, so we're trying to get people to know about it. Man, I appreciate everybody that's in here. One quick comment from True Blue says, need Fred back for that half for offense to run smooth. That is the dilemma. That also speaks to my point about Reed Shepard and being disappointed to not see him in the game late. That's what it's supposed to look like. That's what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to be if Fred VanVleet can't get back, or down the road when Fred VanVleet not here no more, it's supposed to be Reed Shepard. So I want to see him get all of those reps, as many of those reps as possible. But for now, that's this edition of the B-Block Podcast, man. Make sure y'all check us out. And until next time, man, y'all be good.